Hello, I'm Jennifer McClendon, SFMA's Education Manager. Welcome to SFMA's Post-Conference Education Series. Today our speaker will be Dr. Ray McCauley. Dr. McCauley received his bachelor's and master's from Clemson University and his Ph.D. from North Carolina State University. His dissertation at North Carolina State focused on the uses, effects, and recovery from fraise mowing. Today, Dr. McCauley will be presenting Fraise Mowing, Uses, Effects, and Recovery. Dr. McCauley?
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Hey guys, how's our? Hope everyone's doing well today. My name is Ray McCauley. I'm situated at NC State University. If I did go over long with this presentation, you guys please just jot down my email address now, which is rkmccaul@ncsu.edu. I'll post it at the end. And if you have any questions in the future, please don't hesitate to fire them away. But for this presentation, we cover some of my research as well as some other research performed in the Southeast as well as abroad on the uses of fraise mowing for both traditional and alternative. Its effects on playability, as well as different factors that affect recovery of turf grasses from fraise mowing. So just give you a quick outline slide of what we're going to cover. First, talk about the background of fraise mowing, as well as why we fraise mow, the primary reason we fraise mow, different factors that affect recovery, how fraise mowing affects soil physical properties or playability of sports fields. Then we'll get into alternative uses for fraise mowing, including pest management, and then the extras, including debris and costs associated with fraise mowing. So first and foremost, main use for fraise mowing is for controlling thatch. As background for thatch, thatch is a layer of living and dead plant material that forms between the turf grass canopy as well as the soil surface. Whenever this layer is less than a half-inch thick, life is good. That's enough to cushion fallen athletes, as well as protect the turf grass crowns from any temperature extremes as well as traffic. However, once you start getting north of half an inch of thatch, that's when problems start to rise. Those problems can include the formation of localized dry spots, as pictured here, which results in water ponding, when water cannot infiltrate into the soil surface and therefore just runs off. You also get an increase in pest pressure, as in this picture right here. And both your insects and your disease like to reside in the thatch layer. And whenever things start getting rough for the turf grass, they like to jump up there and start attacking that turf grass. So again, perhaps one of the most devastating turf grass diseases of Bermuda grass is spring dead spot. And usually its severity increases with age and increasing thatch content. Thatch also decreases the efficacy of products. Not only can water struggle to move into or through the soil profile, what's dissolved inside that water, both your fertilizers as well as your pesticides, get hung up in the thatch layer, and they can't reach the turf grass roots where they're most efficacious. And finally, thatch can result, or excessive thatch can result in poor aesthetics. Case in point down here, wherever you have a soft surface and the mower settles into it, cutting that little overhide cut or scalping. So traditional cultural practices that we've used to manage thatch, perhaps the best biological method is that of sand top dressing, sand or soil top dressing, which is just that. You're broadcasting a thin layer of sand or soil across the soil surface to either dilute the thatch or increase microbial decomposition of it. Although it does a very good job, if you stay on top of it, you have to stay on top of it. You have to start top dressing from the word go in order to keep that thatch layer diluted. If you don't, then you're just going to have a thatch layer and then a sand layer. You're just going to create a layering effect. Other options available include hollow tine aerification, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. Just taking a hollow tine and extracting the core of soil, thatch, and verdure from the turf grass canopy. But if you look at this, this is on a 2-inch by 2-inch spacing. Hollow tine aerification does not impact a great deal of the surface. It leaves a lot of the surface intact, which means you have to do it multiple times or multiple years to have any significant effect on the thatch layer. Perhaps the best cultural practice before fraise mowing to control thatch was that of vertical mowing. Vertical mowing is just that, taking vertical blades and cutting into the thatch layer to remove thatch. Just like hollow tine aerification, it does not impact the entire surface. Usually it's most aggressive, you're only impacting about 30% of the surface with vertical cutting per direction. Then there's fraise mowing. Fraise mowing is a very aggressive cultural practice which impacts the entire surface. Not 30% of the surface like vertical mowing or hollow tine aerification at their maximum. This is 100% of the surface, giving the option to completely remove the entire thatch layer in a single pass. Fraise mowers come in multiple different shapes and forms. Mostly you're going to find them either tractor mounted units or walk behind units. Usually you're going to use the walk behind units for smaller confined areas. Regardless of the make or the model of the fraise mower, they all pretty much have the same anatomy. If you look at them, that's the rear view of it. They all have rollers or some sort of wheels on the front and back of the machine. Now, if you were to take this machine and stand it on its head, you see the working ends of the machine. Once again, you still have the rollers that control the front, control the depth of the cutting blades. But situated between those rollers is the rotor. attached to this rotor is dozens of blades or teeth, which whenever it rotates, it churns out everything up and removes everything from the turf grass surface and soil and deposits onto this conveyor belt, which dumps it onto an elevator and hopefully onto a accompanying service vehicle. Now, there's a couple different types of rotors available. The initial rotors devised were the digging rotors or offset blades. These blades look very much like a rotor tiller and work very well. Yeah, just like all Fraise mowers work very well. Now, out of necessity to be able to Fraise mow hybrid turf grass systems, the universe rotor or the L-shaped or chisel blades were devised. If you were to use these L-shaped blades on these synthetic fibers mixed into your turf grass canopy, it would just rip them out. Meanwhile, these type of rotors spare these very expensive fibers and allow you to remove organic matter without compromising their integrity. Once again, both of these rotors work very well. And if you don't have stitched fibers or a hybrid system, you can use either one for your field. However, if they say 98% of people or the 2% of people that do have synthetic fibers or stitched grass, then you have to use one of these types of universe rotors or chisel blades. Now, another option for Fraise mowing is that of the turf planer franchise. This is just like every other Fraise mower, same anatomy, same everything. However, what's unique about it is it has receivers on it, which can be tied into a transit. Therefore, you can control your cutting depth on the fly, which gives you considerable precision when releveling the field. Regardless of the make and model of Fraise mower or the rotor you use, you all pretty much wind up with this. What you're left behind is what looks like bare dirt. However, you guys know enough to look closely at all this stubble situated right here. And what you can see here is a whole bunch of stolen rhizomes that had not been cut, have not been removed from Fraise mowing. Eventually, depending on how deep you go and other factors, you'll go from this to an immaculate looking, relatively thatch-free surface in a given amount of time. So that's the background on Fraise mowing. Once again, the primary use for Fraise mowing is for thatch removal. So next, we're going to talk about different factors that affect recovery of turf grasses from Fraise mowing. Depends on a lot of things. One, depends on what type of turf grass you're Fraise mowing. The other thing is when and where you are Fraise mowing, the depth you Fraise mow, as well as post Fraise mowing fertility, as well as top dressing. So as far as turf grasses respond differently to Fraise mowing. You can Fraise mow any one of these 3 turf grasses, but expect different responses, recovery times for each one of these turf grasses. From some research at Iowa State, almost done a decade ago on Kentucky bluegrass, they found it took roughly about 10 weeks, over 10 weeks for it to recover following Fraise mowing. Zoysia grass at the University of Tennessee, they saw it took about 8 weeks to recover following Fraise mowing. Meanwhile, research at NC State, we've seen recovery of Bermuda grass as short as 21 days. Now, granted, this is at the shallow end of cutting depths, but still just a considerable range in recovery times of different turf grasses. Now, as far as Fraise mowing, turf grasses, the ideal time to Fraise mow any turf grass is when it's growing optimally. Doesn't matter the type of turf grass, Fraise mow when it's optimally growing. As far as Bermuda grass, the ideal time to Fraise mow Bermuda grass is when it's growing optimally at daytime temperatures above 85 degrees Fahrenheit and at nighttime temperatures above 65. Now, a lot of people around this neck of the woods, Raleigh, or the Triangle of North Carolina, we're starting to get some 60-degree weathers. And again, whenever you get consistently above 55 degrees for about 3 or 4 days, Bermuda grass will start to green up. However, it doesn't begin to actively start aggressively growing until you hit these higher ranges. So as far as Fraise mow and Bermuda grass, think beach weather, or specifically think swimsuit beach weather for the time to Fraise mow Bermuda grass. Now, there's 2 main dates that you have to keep in mind whenever you Fraise mow. Those 2 dates are the last spring freeze dates. Case in point for Raleigh, North Carolina, the last date we can expect to freeze is about April 1st to April 15th, which has been pretty true to form for the past 7 years since I've been here. As for what this date is important, though, is you want to Fraise mow a while after this date. By a while, I mean either a month and a half to 2 months after this date, waiting for those temperatures to really spike for that Bermuda grass to start growing actively. Just showing you, this is a table showing you the different recovery times between Fraise mowing in mid-May versus mid-June. So if you look at it, whenever we Fraise mow in mid-May, it took 6 weeks to recover from Fraise mowing at these different depths. Meanwhile, compared to a June Fraise mowing, it took only 4 weeks to recover at these respective depths, just showing the difference between these 2 rating dates or these 2 application dates and the pace of recovery of Bermuda grass. The second date you have to be concerned about is the first freeze date. Once again, for Raleigh, North Carolina, usually right around the 1st of November. As far as when you want to finish fraise mowing, you want to be about 2 to 3 months before this date. Now, Bermuda grass growth is really going to start slowing down well before this date. So pretty much the month of October is a wash. It's still green, but it's not aggressively growing. So therefore, as far as fraise mowing, you want to back this date up again 2 to 3 months before this date to ensure that you could add acceptable recovery before it goes off color and before it goes dormant. Perhaps the biggest thing that affects recovery after fraise mowing is how deep you go. The take-home message here is the deeper you go, the longer it's going to take to recover. Reason for that is the deeper you go, the more of these stolons and rhizomes you're removing. Therefore, the more growing points you're removing for that turf grass to recover from. So deeper equals longer recovery time. Now, practices that you can do to speed up recovery after fraise mowing include fertilization and top dressing. In order to speed up your recovery of Bermuda grass after fraise mowing, you have to fertilize. This is just a picture showing that from the research we did at NC State. We applied ammonium sulfate, either 1/4 pound all the way up to 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per week after starting 1 week after fraise mowing, or just gave it 1 slug of 2 pounds of nitrogen with a polymer-coated urea. What we see here is if you fertilize with greater than 1/2 pound of nitrogen per week, you get acceptable turf grass recovery within 3 weeks after fraise mowing. Again, this is after fraise mowing at 1/4 inch deep. For those a little more financial savvy and a little more patient, you can go at the 1/4 pound rate and it'll recover a week later. But take-home message from this is you have to fertilize to speed up your recovery after fraise mowing. Then there's sand top dressing. Thought process for top dressing is potentially manipulate the soil surface to heat up the soil surface to try and increase that Bermuda grass growth. So that's what we studied. Another study that we did at NC State, where we did 3 top dressing rates, either control, 1/8 of an inch deep, 1/4 inch deep, or 1/2 inch deep. And then we monitored it, recovery of that Bermuda grass afterwards. What we can see here, what the different treatments look like immediately after fraise mowing and top dressing, 14 days or 2 weeks afterwards, all treatments look pretty meh. By 4 weeks afterward, all treatments look pretty doggone good. And that's pretty much the take-home message from this table right here. Whenever you top dress immediately afterwards, it doesn't matter what rate you go at, they all pretty much have the same recovery rate. And whenever you look at all these staggered application dates, either 1 week or 2 weeks afterwards, the same thing pretty much applies. No treatment or no sand top treatment was superior to the untreated control. So take-home message from this is you can take or leave your sand top dressing. It really didn't have an effect on your recovery. It can help further level the surface, but it's not going to speed up your recovery. So take-home message from this is fraise mow during ideal growing conditions. In Raleigh, North Carolina, you can get faster recovery usually if you fraise mow in May versus June. Increasing depth increases your recovery time, longer recovery time with deeper depths. Nitrogen, you got to fertilize. Ideally, you're going to fertilize with 1/2 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet with a soluble form. In case of ammonium sulfate, you should have acceptable recovery within 3 weeks if you fraise mow at 1/4 inch deep. And then sand top dressing, you can take it or leave it as far as helping to improve recovery. If you fail to do any of this, and this is what you end up with. This is some research plots we had at the Lake Lure Field Lab at Raleigh. This was fraise mowed too aggressively and too late in the season. We didn't get acceptable recovery in time before winter set. So you have to look at this for the duration of the winter and the spring until this would actually start growing again and recover. So now just a question for you guys. I know you guys can't respond, but bear with me. So we look at this red field and you have to ask yourself, is this a candidate for fraise mowing? Well, the resounding answer should be no. You can fraise mow any surface you want, but if you're expecting this this area to fill in after fraise mowing, you're sadly mistaken. In order to get a rapid recovery following fraise mowing, you have to have healthy grass going into it. So if you have garbage going in, you have garbage coming out. Now you can use the spoils from fraise mowing for this area, but don't expect Bermuda grass to spontaneously appear in this rut. So that's recovery. Next, we're going to move into fraise mowing's effect on soil physical properties with and without hollow tine aerification. So this is just a study I did for my dissertation where we monitored the effects of 3 fraise mowing depths on soil physical properties or playability of 2 different soil types. Our 3 depths were 1/4 inch deep, 1/2 inch deep, and 1 inch deep, as well as an untreated control. All this occurred in Raleigh or the Triangle area, on a Cecil sandy loam in Raleigh, as well as a sand-capped soccer field, which is at the Wake Med Soccer Park, one of the premier soccer parks in North Carolina. So different parameters that we measured with thatch height, soil hardness, saturated hydraulic conductivity, just a fancy way of saying the drainage rate of the soil, as well as the shear strength or divot resistance of the soil. So just some background on the soil hardness. The harder the surface is, the faster the pace of play is. Again, the faster the pace of play, the faster the collisions are going to be. Also, faster the pace of play, the faster or the harder the surface is waiting for these faster moving athletes. Therefore, potentially with a firmer surface, you increase the risk of concussions, as well as contusions suffered by the athletes. Now, for this study, we used the Clegg Impact Soil Tester, also affectionately known as the Clegg, with a 5-pound missile. And then we measured hardness or firmness of the surface every 2 weeks. Just as some background, the NFL has a hard cutoff for soil hardness, which is 100 gravities. Anything greater than 100 gravities is deemed concussion risk. It has to be amended. So this is just 1 year on our sandy loam at our research spots at Lake Wheeler. We'll see here, regardless of the Fraise Mowing depth and regardless of the date in which we measured, we can see an increase in soil firmness, hardness with increasing Fraise Mowing depth. Now, concerning here is immediately after Fraise Mowing, we exceeded that 100 gravities threshold as defined by the NFL. Now, before everybody gets anxious and gets excited about this, few facilities are going to open their fields up for play, or hopefully few facilities are going to open their fields up for play immediately after Fraise Mowing. As far as the deepest depth, the winch, it took about six to 7 weeks to fully recover. If we look at 6 to 7 weeks, we have acceptable soil firmness, soil hardness by that time. So just be mindful. Whenever you Fraise mow, your soil hardness is going to increase. And this was the case for both soils, both in the sand and in the loam, where soil hardness increased. Differences were as great as 50 gravities inside the sandy loam. However, in the sand, they're a little more subdued. Our differences were about 14 gravities. Although we did exceed the 100 gravities about 3 times over 4 years, again, it was the soil hardness would back off or become acceptable by the time that turf grass recovers. And by the time you hopefully open that field up for play, it will recover and soften by the time you open that facility back up for play. Next is shear strength, which is to measure how much force is required to create a divot from a surface. So for this, just concentrating on the sand, what we see here with increasing Fraise Mowing depths across the bottom here, we see a decrease in traction with increasing Fraise Mowing depths in the sand. The reason for this is sand needs reinforcing roots and rhizomes and stolons to hold together. It's a non-cohesive surface that doesn't cling together. It needs all this organic, not organic matter, but roots to hold together to keep it from creating a divot. As you go deeper and remove more of this material, you're going to eventually decrease the traction on it. However, if the acceptable ranges are from 20 to 120, you can see, regardless of our depth, well within the acceptable range of shear strength for the sand. Next is saturated hydraulic conductivity, just a fancy way of saying how quickly water moves through the saturated soil. Usually, to have faster drainage rates, you need sand content greater than 70% or very well structured soil, which is a rarity in sports turf settings. If you have compaction or a built up organic matter, aka thatch and mat, your KSAT or your drainage rate is going to decrease. Now, as a reference, recommended rate is between 6 and 16 inches per hour at establishment. That you need that to ensure your field adequately drains and make sure your athletes have proper footing, or else you run into a mud bath like this, or not a mud bath, but at least a puddle bath like this. Now, what we would expect from a decrease in thatch height, or with increasing Fraise Mowing depth, we would expect an increase in KSAT. We expect an increase in drainage rate with more organic matter removed with deeper Fraise Mowing depths. But actually, the exact opposite happened. What we see is a gradual decrease or step down decrease in drainage rate with increasing Fraise Mowing depths. Now, is this acceptable? If we look at what the acceptable range is, it's recommended range is between 6 and 16 inches per hour. And as you can see, regardless of the Fraise Mowing depth, it's still within that acceptable range. It's just a little concerning that it decreased with increasing Fraise Mowing depths. Now, take-home message from this is for playability, soil physical properties, regardless of the Fraise Mowing depth on either soil, resulting in safe playing surfaces as defined by acceptable ranges of soil hardness, as well as shear strength and KSAT. Regardless of the soil, our soil hardness increased both in the sand as well as the sandy loam. Our shear strength with soil dependence slightly increased in the sandy loam, but decreased in the sand, and increasing depths of Fraise Mowing decrease our KSAT, our drainage rate in the sand. Potentially maybe caused by sealing of the surface by the Fraise Mowing blades or soil smearing. So that leads us to the next part of the study is what happens if we combine hollow tine aerification with Fraise Mowing? Will that improve that drainage rate as well as potentially decrease in compaction as well? So that is the justification for this next part of the study, which we did at NC State. So just background on hollow tine aerification. Again, it's great for relieving compaction. Also, as we know, increases our infiltration rates. Its benefits usually last about 4 weeks. However, as we discussed earlier, its effect on thatch reduction isn't very good, just because it impacts such a small surface area. So the question of this question posed for the study was, is this a match made in heaven? Do you get all the thatch control benefits with Fraise Mowing combined with the compaction relief and increased infiltration rates with hollow tine aerification? So that was the basis of the second part of the study. So just the first question we want to answer is whether or not combining Fraise Mowing or hollow tine aerification with Fraise Mowing was going to slow down our Bermuda grass recovery after doing both treatments. So just showing you a 1/2 inch of Fraise Mowing depth, either aerified or non-aerified on the left, and then 1 inch Fraise Mowing depth, either aerified on top or non-aerified on the bottom. Just following this through 1, 3, and 6 weeks afterwards. As we can see, immediately after 1 week after Fraise Mowing, everything looks pretty ugly, regardless of aerified or non-aerified. By 3 weeks after Fraise Mowing and aerification, the 1/2 inch treatment looks acceptable, both aerified and non-aerified. Meanwhile, the 1 inch depth at aerified and non-aerified still looks meh. Then whenever it's 6 weeks afterwards, we see regardless of aerification or non-aerification, everything looks pretty doggone good. Matter of fact, the only time we saw a reduction in turf grass quality whenever we aerified is when we did not Fraise Mow. This is the true untreated check versus just aerification alone, where we had unacceptable turf grass quality for about 2 weeks afterwards. So take home message that is, you can combine Fraise Mowing and hollow tine aerification. It's not going to slow down your recovery of Bermuda grass. Now, as far as the impact on drainage, if we average all our Fraise Mowing depths and just look at the effect of hollow tine aerification, hollow tine aerification in red, and what we can see here, regardless of the date, we have a higher drainage rate with aerified plots versus non-aerified plots, which was significant at 0, 2, and all the way up to 8 weeks after Fraise Mowing as well. So take home message of that is, this is a match made in heaven. If you can, hollow tine aerify after your Fraise Mow, you get the best of both worlds. You get the thatch removal from Fraise Mowing, then you get the compaction relief, as well as increased drainage rate with aerification. And neither one or combining them will not decrease or slow down your recovery either. So now, I guess question, I didn't know really just put this slide, guys, so just going to put it here. Question that's been asked a couple of times is just how long can we expect these thatch reduction benefits of Fraise Mowing to last? Well, this is another study that we recently did on diamond zoysia putting green. Now it's diamond zoysia grass. I know not too many sports fields, if any, have diamond zoysia grass as a grass, but just take this with a grain of salt and just hopefully can translate a little bit over to your Bermuda grass or other sports fields. So this is Fraise Mowing at two different depths, as well as vertical mowing. Please excuse the metric units, but we have either a 1/4 inch deep or 1/2 inch deep. What we're doing is we're comparing early depths. This is 10 days after Fraise Mowing versus 1 year after Fraise Mowing. So we're looking at what we'll compare everything back to is our initial control, what it was, our thatch or organic matter content before Fraise Mowing. So 1 year afterwards, we can see that the shallow depth had similar organic matter content as the original untreated control, thus saying that we can expect the benefits of Fraise Mowing at a 1/4 inch deep as far as organic matter management to last for about a year. However, if we look at the 1/2 inch Fraise Mowing depth, this is still significantly less than the initial control. So we can bank on doing a 1/2 inch deep treatments, these benefits lasting 2+ years, which puts you on a cycle of Fraise Mowing once every 3 years. So again, initial results would show that if you want to go to 1/4 inch deep, you probably have to do it to get that organic matter management. However, you can stretch it to every 3 years if you go deeper than 1/2 inch. Okay, so that's effect on soil physical properties as well as playability. Next is we're going to get into the different uses of Fraise Mowing, some alternative uses of Fraise Mowing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is transition. Overseeing, especially in the transition zone, is a necessary evil. Not only does it improve the aesthetics of the field, also gives athletes a actively growing surface, which can recover from damage. However, perennial ryegrass, if left too long, can be a pretty noxious weed, as pictured here. Ryegrass actively competes with Bermuda grass for light. And if you leave it on there too long, it can effectively shade out the Bermuda grass, as you see right here. This is a picture of a sports field that has just been sprayed out, or recently been sprayed out, with a revolver on the left and untreated on the right. As you can see here, this Bermuda grass obviously is pretty doggone thin just because it's been shaded for so long. Now, if Bermuda grass does not have 90 to 100 days to fully recover from overseeding, eventually it's going to peter out. It may not happen the first year, might not happen the second year, but you're dancing with fire. Eventually, this stand will decline, and you'll end up with some pretty nasty bare spots. To ensure that Bermuda grass has ample time to recover, we traditionally use transition aids in the form of herbicides, specifically sulfonylureas. Now, the basis for this project that we did in NC State is whether or not we can use Fraise Mowing, not only to remove the thatch, but to remove this bunch-type turf grass, perennial ryegrass. So if you kill that crown of that perennial ryegrass, you kill the plant, and then in turn, you're going to let the underlying Bermuda grass recover from these unmown rhizomes and stolons. So that's the basis of this for this study, whether or not we can use Fraise Mowing as a transition aid. So just showing you concentrate, we did mid-May or mid-June treatments. For time's sake, I'm just going to show you the mid-June treatments. What we have here, this is 21 days after the start of the study, we Fraise mowed in mid-June. And what you see here is, regardless of the half-inch or 3/4 inch depth, they put a hurt on that perennial ryegrass, and you're left with less than 10%, it looks like less than 5% perennial ryegrass for the duration of the study. Therefore, you're removing that perennial ryegrass competition and letting that Bermuda grass recover unchecked. Okay, so it works. As far as same table as before, just showing you the recovery rate for the different Fraise mowing depths used as a transition aid. If you Fraise mow in mid-May, although it does remove all the perennial ryegrass, it does take 2 weeks longer to recover than, say, Fraise mowing in mid-June. So take-home message for this is, yes, you can use Fraise mowing as a transition aid. However, be warned, you're going to be looking at this for about a couple of weeks until those stolons or rhizomes start popping again and start shooting out new growth. Sorry for that. So ideally timing and depth, you want to go mid-June, early to mid-June, and preferably at half-inch deep. You can go at 3/4 inch deep, but it's going to take a little bit longer to recover, and you're going to generate more debris. Now, some sticking points with using Fraise mowing as a transition aid. If we compare or look at the different costs of some herbicides used as spring transition aids, one main one used is a revolver or 4M sulfuron. At the highest labeled recommended rate, it costs about $241 per acre to make this application. However, if we look at the quoted price of 12 cents per square foot for a contractor to Fraise mow off your perennial ryegrass, you're looking at roughly $5,200 in change to treat the same area, which is a little bit of some walk around money there. That's a little steep. Now, before you get your boxers in a wad, before we get really concerned about this, let's take a step back. If you're planning on Fraise mowing anyway to remove thatch, why not kill 2 birds with 1 stone? So in that case, you could keep that $250 in your pocket or keep that $250 in the jug. Just go and Fraise mow to remove both the thatch as well as the perennial ryegrass and kill those 2 birds with 1 stone. So that's using Fraise mowing as a spring transition aid. Next thing that's had about 3 studies done over it the past maybe 20 years is the use of Fraise mowing as to control annual bluegrass. Just a lot of background information on annual bluegrass. Is deemed the worst winter annual and managed turf grasses. I think recently I saw is the #2 weed in the world, only behind palm or amaranth. Biggest sticking point with annual bluegrass, it's its distinct light green, yellowish green color, as well as prolific seed head production, which disrupt turf grass quality as well as uniformity. It is a cosmopolitan species, which means it's found in every corner of the earth, which means people have even found annual bluegrass seeds in Antarctica. So it is everywhere. No matter where you go, what type of turf grass system you manage, you're probably going to have to deal with this weed. It's a pain in the tail because it can survive variable heights of cut. So not only are you guys that have to deal with it, but as well as golf course. It easily finds a home on golf course putting greens, as well as athletic fields. Another problems other than its poor aesthetics is also its poor tolerances to stresses, specifically drought and traffic stress. Once it experiences either one of these stresses, it's gone. It doesn't hang around to put up with any of this nonsense. and it quickly checks out, leaving bare dead areas. It's also opportunistic, which means the seeds are probably already everywhere, which means those seeds are just waiting for a cavity to form in your sports field before they pop. So case in point here, between the hash marks, these divots are prime location for already existing annual bluegrass seed to pop. And it can become so bad, some research done in England showed that it can become the dominant species in less than a year, where they observed greater than 65% annual bluegrass cover. Something looking about like this surface in the span of 1 year. Other sticking points is it's pretty doggone resistant to some herbicides. Currently, there are only about 3 modes of action without resistance, or 3 modes of action of herbicides without resistance. It's currently resistant to 12 modes of action. Case in point of this, or the purpose of this slide is just showing that the spray and pray model that we've been adopting forever is no longer working. We got to find some other way to control this weed. Last sticking point about it is it's a prolific seed producer. A square meter of annual bluegrass can produce nearly 700,000 seeds per season, and the seed is viable for about 6 years inside the soil. Now, some silver linings about this is that the majority of this seed, whenever it rains down from the turfgrass surface, usually stays within the top inch of the soil profile. So depending on what research paper you look at, either 80% is in the top half inch or in the top inch of the soil profile, which means that these depths overlap with the depths of Fraise Mowing, which means that we could potentially not only kill this bunch type of turfgrass, but as well as remove all the seed bank as well in the process. And that's the basis for these 2 studies that were done over the past 20 years. The first one was done with Baker & Company over in Brinkley, United Kingdom, or just outside Leeds, Northern England, where they Fraise mowed at 2 different depths, either 1/4 inch deep or 7/10 of an inch deep. And then this was, in their case, this was a perennial ryegrass sports field or turfgrass settings. And what they showed is this is after the first year, just the amount of annual bluegrass in black, the untreated check. After the first year, not so much, but by second year, that percent of annual bluegrass skyrocketed to greater than 50% coverage. Now we have these 2 Fraise mowing depths, the shallowest depths, which did a little bit to control it, and then we have the deeper depth, which was 7/10 of an inch deep, which really put a hurt on that on that annual bluegrass, and it's less than 5% coverage. Same thing for the third year of the study. This is after a second year of Fraise mowing and coralling their deeper Fraise mowing depths as well. Once again, the shallowest depth reduced it a little bit. But if you really want, they found if you really want to get after the annual bluegrass population, Fraise mowing at 7/10 of an inch deep to keep that annual bluegrass population less than 5%. This is after the whole soccer playing season. So this is resulting in a greater than about 90 to 95% reduction in annual bluegrass with this deeper depth. Take home message from this is the control had greater than 50% annual bluegrass. You're looking at something like this by the end of the second and third year of the study. The 1/4 inch deep depth treatment did a decent, removed it a little bit, but still you had about 30% annual bluegrass cover in that. But if you really want to remove that, not only the plants, and they didn't mention seed bank, or they didn't say the seed bank, but they predicted it was affecting the seed bank. You really want to affect those 2 things. You really got to go deeper at 7/10 of an inch deep. So then the follow-up study, which was done in the mid-2010s, in a joint study at the University of Florida as well as the University of Knoxville. This is a study done by Dr. Carroll at University of Tennessee, or Devin Carroll at the University of Tennessee. What they did, they Fraise mowed at 2 different depths on 2 different types of turf grasses, either common Bermuda grass in Tennessee or hybrid Bermuda grass in Tiff Sport in Florida. And they Fraise mowed at 2 different depths, either 6/10 of an inch deep or really going after it 1.2 inches deep. And first, we're going to concentrate just on the Tennessee results. If you look at University of Tennessee results, and it did a pretty doggone good job. If we look at the untreated control, we had greater than 30% coverage for the duration of the study, all the way up to 60% by the end of the study in April. Meanwhile, both Fraise mowing depths, 6/10 of an inch deep, as well as 1.2 inches deep, did a very good job of controlling not only removing those annual bluegrass plants, but as well as the seed bank. And this a picture credit Devin Carroll right here for this as well. This is what you're left with after everything's fully recovered in the ensuing spring. Again, here you see here a minimal annual bluegrass pressure. Now, concerningly, whenever we look at the University of Florida results, is despite having an initial reduction in annual bluegrass, they were pretty much all the same in February, which means they likely had a second flush or multiple other reasons why it didn't work quite as well as the University of Tennessee. So the take-home message from this is it's not a silver bullet, but it definitely helps. Both research from Baker and Company as well as Carroll showed that if you go greater than 6/10 of an inch deep, it's going to do a very good job of removing not only the plants, but as well as the future seed bank. If you go shallow, less than these depths, specifically a 1/4 inch deep, it did not work very well at all. The other benefit you get from going at the shallower depth, not only do you remove all those weeds and the weed bank, you get a faster recovery and you get less debris at that shallower depth. So that's using Fraise Mower as a weed control, either as a weed control specifically for annual bluegrass control. Next thing we're talking about is spring dead spot. Spring dead spot is probably the worst disease we deal with in turfgrass and Bermuda grass settings. Excuse me. It's a disease that infects turfgrass or Bermuda grass roots, rhizomes, and stolons. It doesn't so much kill the plant, but weakens enough that eventually the cold winters kill the plant. It survives in the thatch on these roots, rhizomes, and stolons. The patches initially start off about 1/2 foot wide and eventually incrementally get larger as years go on. Now it gets worse with age. As we're putting on more thatch and these turf grasses maturing, thatch levels increases and therefore our likelihood of getting spring dead spot Bermuda grass increases. So now some research conducted at the University of Missouri by Gerald Lee Miller showed that, or try to investigate whether or not you can use Fraise Mowing as a to control spring dead spot. Like, when we know Fraise Mowing is an excellent tool for managing thatch. If we get rid of thatch, can we potentially get rid of that spring dead spot? So that's what they studied. They went at roughly about 2/10 of an inch deep or 3/10 of an inch deep, and they either did these alone or they followed up with pentopyrad, or fungicide known as Valista, at 2 timings, once immediately after Fraise Mowing as well as mid-October. And what the results was, if we got the area underneath the disease curve, we got the untreated control right here. Obviously, it's got a whole bunch of spring dead spot in it. Now, if we just look at the deepest depth, which is the 3/10 of an inch deep, nearly cut that pressure in half. However, still some spring dead spot. If you want to go the extra mile and further control that disease, you have to it'd be recommended to 1 Fraise Mow at either depths, as well as followed up with those fungicides. Just exciting bit about this though is Fraise Mowing was the equivalent to 2 applications of a fungicide. So once again, tool, not a silver bullet, but definitely a tool for helping to reduce spring dead spot pressure in hybrid Bermuda grass. So summarizing the effects of this study is it is a suppression aid. It does help decrease that pressure of spring dead spot. If Fraise Mowing, once again, at 3/10 of an inch deep was the equivalent to making 2 applications of a fungicide. If you really want to get rid of that disease, they found that you got to follow it up with that fungicide application. These results coincide or agreed with what Camden Shelton, as well as Dr. McCauley, found at Virginia Tech University as well. And their results mirrored that of Gerald Miller and Company. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is not so much an aid as using an aid for Fraise Mowing, but potentially a con for using Fraise Mowing. Last thing we talk about is using, or the effect of Fraise Mowing on pre-emergent herbicides. About this time of year, I'm sure most of the people in transition zone are throwing out some pre-emergent herbicides to control what will eventually be some crabgrass, germinating, as well as some goosegrass. Now, the go-to pre-emergent herbicide is usually oxidizone, because it inhibits shoot growth. It still allows vegetative reestablishment. You can still sod or spray into your spore fields after applying this herbicide, or this pre-emergent herbicide, without negatively affecting your Bermuda grass. Now, this product, whenever you put it out, usually stays in the top inch of the soil profile. Usually about 73 to 100% of it stays in that top inch. Now, Adazoflam, I don't really recommend it for use in sports turf settings, but it's also a very good herbicide. It works by inhibiting root growth. Unlike oxidizone, it can last a heck of longer in the soil profile. At the high rate, you can control for greater than 10 months. And this is a lot more soluble in the soil profile as well. So research has shown that after similar rainfall events, it can percolate down to about 1 foot into the soil profile. Now, previous research has shown that if you hollow tine, aerify, or verticut immediately after doing either one of these, applying either one of these herbicides, it has no effect on the efficacy of these products. However, nobody as of late has done any research on Fraise Mowing's effect on these products. So that was the basis of the study. What we did, we applied Ronsoil or spectacle flow with the highest recommended rates to 2 different soils, either sand or sandy loam soil. Waited a month, then Fraise Mowed, and then overseed everything with 16 pounds of perennial ryegrass, using this ryegrass as an indicator species, trying to figure out whether or not this product was still around to control any germinating weeds. Just to showing you results right here, as far as the effect of Fraise Mowing at 8 millimeters deep, which is a little over a quarter-inch deep. You can see here about a double Fraise Mowing after an indaziflame application, double the amount of perennial ryegrass that germinated. However, what is even more concerning is if you Fraise Mow after doing an oxidizon or Ronstar application, you get 4 times as much perennial ryegrass germination versus the non-Fraise mowed. So what this looks like is this is Ronstar on the top and this oxidizon on the top, as well as spectacle or indaziflame on the bottom. What you can see here, regardless if this has been treated with only treated with a herbicide, and this has only been treated with a herbicide, those herbicides work. Thus stopping that perennial ryegrass from germinating. This is the untreated or non-herbicide check, and you can see you get very good germination in that. Now, if we look at Fraise Mowing in either one of these herbicides, and you can see that, especially in the oxidizon, we get an increase in germination of that ryegrass. So, take-home message for this is: if you Fraise Mow after applying these herbicides, all that herbicide is going out with the bathwater, and you're going to be naked, and you're going to have to do a repeat application to control any summer annual weeds that you may have. So if you are planning on Fraise Mowing, if you are planning on Fraise Mowing in the summertime, it won't be a bad idea to keep that product in the jar or in the bottle or in the bag, and then apply them after, specifically applying that oxidizon after you apply or after you do Fraise Mowing, just so you don't waste that product. Also, with recent legislation, there is a cap on the amount of oxidizon you can apply on a surface per year, which I think is around 3 to 3.5 pounds. So if you have to do a second application at the high rate, you would be in excess of that legal rate. So if you have the option to wait. So that's all the different alternative uses for Fraise Mowing. Next thing we're going to do is the extras. What other things or what other concerns there are with Fraise Mowing? The first thing is with debris. Anyone who has ever done Fraise Mowing knows that Fraise Mowing generates a heck of a lot of debris. A lot of debris. Again, this is just not even a 100-yard pass right here, and this is filled up this dump trailer. Now, to measure the amount of debris, this is a study we did at NC State. We took a walk behind Fraise Mower. We set it to a given depth. We made the pass. Beautiful thing about a walk down Fraise Mower, it doesn't discharge material; it just drops it in place. So we have a defined area, and we collected all this material, threw it in the bucket, and then weighed it, and then measured its volume to try and figure out how much debris was generated per given area, and then expanding this or extrapolating it to a per acre basis. Now, if we look at how much debris is generated from Fraise Mowing, a celebration bluegrass sports field, which is maintained a half-inch deep. If you go at 3/10 of an inch deep, you're generating about 10 to 15 tons per acre. Meanwhile, if you go at 1 inch depth, you're generating roughly about 100 tons of material per acre. It's a heck of a lot of material. It doesn't mean much without being able to visualize it. Now, if we look at the amount of debris generated on a volume basis, we can see that a 3/10 of an inch deep is going to generate approximately about 60 to 70 cubic yards of material. Meanwhile, if you Fraise Mow at 1 inch deep, you're generating about 275, 300 cubic yards of material. A heck of a lot of material. Now, what does this mean? The reason I show this or did this study is if you were to base the amount of material generated by calculating the length times the width times the depth of the Fraise Mowing, let's say if you did that calculation for doing a half-inch deep, that calculation would come up with approximately 55 cubic yards. If you compare that to what was actually generated, you have approximately 3 Honda cords left around. A Honda cord is about roughly 17 cubic yards in volume. That's how much debris you have left over in your parking lot that you have to get rid of. Now, even more concerning, if you do that length times width times depth volume at a 1 inch depth, comes up with about 125 cubic yards. That is approximately 9 Honda cords that you have lying around. I'm not saying this line right here is absolute, but just be aware that that the amount of debris is generated falls somewhere in between this. Again, not saying that you should take these values to heart. We're just saying throw a couple extra bucks in your budget if you're planning on Fraise Mowing for a couple extra dumpsters or dump trailers or dump trucks to haul this material away, because it's going to generate more debris than what you think. Beautiful thing about debris is it is mostly composed of viable sprigs. As you can see right here from this debris. This sprigs can be used from our good old beat up sports field from before. You can plant these sprigs and they're viable sprigs. You can use it to reestablish worn areas on your sports complex or other sports fields in your area. Now, don't limit yourself to getting rid of this debris just to sports fields. Golf courses, especially in the transition zone, periodically experience winter kill, and they can be desperate for or looking for vegetative material to reestablish these worn areas as well. So you can use not only all the debris on your sports facility, if you have worn areas, but as well as surrounding golf courses or any other thin turf grass sections. Now, other uses for Fraise Mowing include use for renovations. Now, for traditional renovation, what you would do is you'd first cut the sod, then you'd have to remove the sod. If you're me driving the skid steer, you're probably going to dump the bucket and probably gouge out and ruin your grade. Therefore, I'm doing it, you have to add more root zone to refill that grade. You have to rototill all that material together, regrade everything, and then eventually resod. So what we're hoping will only take a day or two is now turned into closer to a week or two to fully do this full renovation. Now, if we take a Fraise mower and specifically do the corrowing, which is deeper Fraise mowing, we have the beautiful thing of just Fraise mowing to a set depth and just resodding right behind it. Again, boom, boom. None of these 6 steps as before, 2 steps, and you can be done within hours, what would take you days or weeks before. This is often seen in the NFL, case in point right here between the hash marks. This allows sports field managers, especially the higher echelons of the game, to resod, renovate these areas in the span of a couple hours. Do this in an overnight setting. Case in point with Casey Carrick at UNC football, when they still had natural grass. They were doing full field renovations over less than 24-hour periods where they completely stripped off everything and then resodded right behind it. Again, this wouldn't have been possible without having a Fraise mower or multiple Fraise mowers going at a time for a quick turnaround. Other things for renovations is baseball settings. You get migration of infill material as well as be it infill mix or as well as conditioner. Either from negligence from poor dragging practices right here, we're dragging it into the grass, or just from simply pulling on and off of the infield tarp after repeated times. Again, the conditioner likes to collect on this bottom of the wet infield tarp, and then just collect on the grass edge, forming these infield lips. Now, ideally, a sports field, specifically a baseball field, should drain from the pitching mound out, or in the case of higher fields where you have flat infields, should drain from the front of the infield skid to the outfield, as well as from the sidelines to the warning track. Now, if you have these infield lips, it obviously restricts the drainage, restricts the surface drainage, and the water can never leave the infield, resulting in a lake. Even better picture right here, resulting in that infield lake created from that migrating conditioner, creating that lip and thus disrupting your surface drainage. Not only these lips block surface drainage, they also result in erratic hops, bad bounces, which not only compromise the playability of the field, but also player safety. So beautiful thing about Fraise mowing is you can make just one pass around the infield, around the entire infield, to remove some of these lips. Case in point right here, courtesy of Turf Planer. You can just make one pass on the back of the infield, and you can see where all this built-up infield material is right here, versus where you're hardly even touching it farther into the outfield. And then after case in point on the inside the infield edge, you can see where all that built-up infield material is, and then hardly stripping anything off here, just because there's no lip there. And then thus restoring those infield grades, restoring that surface drainage, and allowing that infield to naturally surface drain. So another renovation used for Fraise mowing is to remove those infield lips and to restore those surface grades. So the last concerns, this one to wrap up before taking the questions, is a couple other major concerns with Fraise mowing is the unsightliness as well as its perception. With Fraise mowing, you can easily go from this, an immaculate sports field, again, looks practically flawless, to this in the span of a couple hours. Now, you guys are prepared. You guys know this. I recommend you guys take a picture of this. You may know it. However, these people right here, these athletic directors, these coaches, these assistant coaches that make a heck of a lot more money than I ever will, probably don't know what to expect. And they're going to probably get very upset or very concerned when they look at this and see a recently Fraise mowed field. So take home from measures of this is Fraise mowing is very unsightly. It has very bad perception. If you are planning on Fraise Mowing, make sure you get on the horn well in advance and tell everybody and their brother what you're going to do and what you can expect, what they can expect, as well as from Fraise Mowing, because it is very unsightly. Other concern with Fraise Mowing is it's very expensive. Let's just do some simple math right here, but in order to effectively and efficiently Fraise Mowing, you need a lot of equipment. Let's just assume each one of these tractors right here costs about $50,000. That's $50,000, $50,000, $50,000. That's $150,000. These dump trailers that these two tractors are towing, we'll be kind and say they cost about $10,000 to $15,000. So just in those, before we even get a Fraise mower, we're up to $180,000. Fraise mowers usually, the smallest ones cost about, smallest tractor mounted ones cost about $25,000. They go up about $10,000, go up to about $10,000 more with the highest size ones, which are the 8-foot wide ones. So just simple math, we'll say that's $30,000, including the Fraise mower. So altogether here, we're looking at $210,000 if you want to Fraise mow effectively in-house, which is a little bit of enough money to catch your attention. A lot of people understand don't have that type of money lying around. Now, a viable option for that is resort to a contractor. Usually contractor prices are going to range anywhere from about 10 to 25 cents per square foot. No laughing matter for amount of money either, but still far, far cheaper than the $210,000 that you're going to need to get this Fraise mowing operation up and going in the house. Other thing you got to worry about, we talked about debris as well. One, you're going to generate a heck of a lot of debris. If you're at a landlocked facility, usually in inner cities, where you don't have the luxury of a dump area, all this material usually has to be hauled off-site. As we mentioned earlier, a heck of a lot of debris is generated. So not only do you need the equipment to load up that material, you also need to hire dump trucks or as well as dumpsters to have that material hauled off-site. So those are the final concerns with Fraise mowing. Now, we talked about all the benefits of Fraise mowing. Just the take-home message from this is Fraise mowing is probably the best cultural practice you can use to get rid of thatch. And it has multiple other uses as well. Just be mindful that the pros outweigh the cons with Fraise mowing. And I recommend it anyway. With that, I'm going to stop here just after they're showing the references and open up for any questions anybody might have. Yeah. Okay. If you have any questions, guys, feel free to fire away. I'll try and answer them whatever time we have left.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything.
Covered it all.
Yeah, that was a very valuable presentation. Yeah. Well, if any of our attendees do have questions, Dr. McCauley has provided his information. The last call for questions, you can just type them down in the chat. We'll give you a few more seconds there. Okay, it doesn't look like we'll have any questions today. Well, thank you, Dr. McCauley. We really appreciate your time, and that will be a valuable addition to our conference education library. And thank you to our attendees. We appreciate you attending today for our webinar. The recordings will be available on our website as well as in the education session library. Thank you again, Dr. McCauley, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Jennifer, for organizing everything.
Sure. Thank you. Bye.